Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
In an extremely LA arrangement, the Rams are allowing Matthew Stafford to talk to other people. And Luka Doncic and the Lakers, speaking of LA, took the Nuggets out to the woodshed. This is going as well as the Lakers could have hoped, at least of late. And do the Raiders have zero shot to win in 2025?
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It would have been easy to dismiss the early Matthew Stafford trade reports as nothing more than wishful thinking from some quarterback-needy teams out there. But now the Rams have given permission to Matthew Stafford's camp to go out and test his market, see what teams are willing to pay him, and then we'll see what happens from there. Doug McCain from Locked On Rams joins me now. And Doug, you and I talked about this about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, about why you think this was happening. But this is not a trade request, and I think we have to remember that part of it. That being said, this is an atypical way for a team to negotiate. Why do you think the Rams are handling it this way?
I think really it's just to put themselves in a position where it's just a little less awkward between the Rams and Matthew Stafford and his agent, Jimmy Sexton. I mean, they're letting other teams essentially negotiate Stafford's contract, and they're letting teams show him what they value him at. And I think if you're the Rams, you have to make the decision, are you going to move forward with this current group with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and pursue a Lombardi trophy the next couple of seasons? Or are you willing to start a whole new era of Rams football? Are you going to bring back a guy that'll help you win for the next 1 or 2 years? Or are you going to try to get some picks and try to acquire players that'll help you win for the next 5 to 10 years? So I think that's really the position that they're in. And I just don't think they want to pay Matthew Stafford $55 million a year, anything like that. They're looking for a team out there to say, okay, we'll pay you $45, $46 million. And if that's the case, the Rams will be happy with doing just that.
Okay, so that's a fascinating place to leave us, because I wanted to ask you exactly this question. What do you think the preferred outcome is for the Rams? Is it that Matthew Stafford goes out and finds his market is not quite as robust as Jimmy Sexton is saying at the negotiating table? Or do you think they hope some team is willing to pay him $55 million, and as such, if you're willing to do that, you have to be willing to give up premium draft capital to get there? What do you think the preferred Rams outcome is here?
So when I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, every morning in a cold sweat, these are the questions I think of, because I think that really is the thing. Because here in Los Angeles, don't tell anyone here that there's any trade that's impossible, right? We saw Luka Doncic get traded.
Yes.
Shout out to Nico Harrison for that. But I do think that still Plan A is to bring back Matthew Stafford on a reasonable contract, because they know they've drafted so well. Those pieces have continued to emerge. They just have to hit on one free agency, and they have a chance to compete. Last year, they whipped on free agency. If they hit on free agency, they continue to draft well, as young players continue to emerge. You add some pieces around Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams, you feel good about where this offense is. But I also think, too, that, I mean, we were talking about a little bit, Les Snead has mentioned the possibility of adding a mobile quarterback and how that could literally be the cheat code moving forward. And you see now, I mean, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the list goes on and on. That's the trend in the National Football League. So I do think that Matthew Stafford still, from an arm talent standpoint, could be their guy. But if it's not the right contract, they're not going to be desperate for Matthew Stafford. I think for me, the way I stand is I trust Sean McVay and Les Snead more than I love Matthew Stafford. And if they feel that there's not a contract in place that makes sense for them, they want to move forward, I'm excited to see what they can do for the next era. But I do still think that plan A for them is to bring Matthew Stafford back, because he's the guy that has played in 7 playoff games. He's won 5 of them, and he's played great to elite in most of those games. So they know what he's capable of in the playoffs, and they still think that he can win a Super Bowl for them.
Well, so if that's the case, and we saw the Rams play the Eagles tougher than anybody else in the postseason, to be sure. I mean, they were one play away from going to the NFC Championship game, potentially going to the Super Bowl. So if you're a Rams fan, I can understand you going, why are we doing this? Why are we playing hardball with this guy who won us a Super Bowl already? Why are we negotiating this way? Just pay him the money, and who cares? We'll figure it out in 3 years if he's old.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think if you're the Rams in this situation, it just comes down to, are you truly all in on him as a player? And that's kind of where I've been at too. It's like, hey, what's the difference? If you truly think that you can win another Super Bowl, those extra 10 million, 20 million, whatever it may be, you're going to forget about that in the long run. But I also think there's a guy that's dealt with injury issues throughout the season. I mean, there was talks about him retiring a couple of years ago. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo threw for more yards in any regular season game than him this year. I mean, that was against a Seahawks team that had a lot of incentive to play in that game. So I'm not saying that Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford, but when you look at his regular season numbers, they don't scream, hey, top 5 quarterback money, right? But I think there's that element of it as well. And like I said, I do think that this Rams organization, Sean McVay, that look, he's that they called it the weight-bearing walls, right? With Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. Now only that one of those walls is still in place right now, Matthew Stafford. I think that they would love to have him back, but I don't think that it is the end-all, be-all for them. I truly believe that just because of what we've seen from them this offseason. I don't think they like how public this has gotten, but that's just where they're at, and they're going to make the best decision for the organization. I think that you look at this year's draft, too. It doesn't have a ton of elite quarterbacks that you would just say, oh, those are future foundational QBs, franchise quarterbacks, but 2026 sure does. So I think that that's something that's on their mind as well.
You can stay up to date on the LA Rams by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Rams on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. Luka Doncic has his first big game with the Lakers, probably not his last. Before we get to that, the Indiana Hoosiers dominated Purdue in a must-win game. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Monday night will feature some fun NBA action. You can get out on the Pacers are 4-point home dogs to the Nuggets. The Pistons favored by 1 in what should be a tightly contested match with the Clippers. That was my Midwest coming out. A tightly contested match. And the 76ers are 2.5-point favorites over the Bulls. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Indiana men's basketball coach Mike Woodson has already announced his plans to retire at the end of the season, but that hasn't stopped the Hoosiers from making headlines. They pulled off a stunning road upset against Michigan State a couple weeks ago and followed it up with a dominant second-half performance in Sunday's blowout win over number 13 Purdue.
Indiana upsets Purdue 73-58. And there were so many different trends in this game, and we didn't know what to expect in this game, right? Coming into it, you had the week off, right? If you're IU, didn't have the midweek game. Things were just not going well. Everybody seemed to just kind of punt on the season and wait to see who the next head coach is going to be. But I've been telling you that we still had tournament hopes, right? The win against Michigan State was solid. Yeah, you backed it up with the loss to UCLA, but you had a few more chances, and this was one of them. And you take down Purdue 73-58, dominate the second half.
How about some association basketball? The Celtics took care of business against the Knicks.
Boston Celtics made it a little interesting in the third quarter, letting up after a 27-point lead. The Knicks cut it down to single digits, but they dominated the fourth quarter. Jason Tatum was an assist shy of another triple-double. He is just on a passing tear. He's seeing the floor better than ever. The Celtics built up a huge lead, got whatever they wanted. That third quarter run by the Knicks, impressive. Jalen Brunson was hitting a bunch of shots, but the Celtics did let up. The Celtics kind of let go of the rope a little bit. This is going to be tough for the Knicks to beat the allegations here of not being able to beat good teams. The Celtics, when they were putting in maximum effort, dominated this game in every facet. They were defending as well as they have this season. They were getting onto the boards. They were doing everything. Jaylen Brown with 24 points. This was a big fourth quarter from Derek White to kind of put the game away. just a dominant Celtics run, even with a little bit of a let-up. This is exactly what you expect to see from the Celtics. They look very much like their championship selves.
The Dallas Mavericks look like who they were, well, down a superstar in a 24-point loss to the Warriors.
The Dallas Mavericks have been without Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Dwight Powell, and even Caleb Martin since the trade. They've been without all of their bigs. But one of the biggest problems Mavericks have had is they can't score at times. They go multiple stretches where they just can't get any buckets at all. And that happened in this first quarter against the Golden State Warriors. The Mavs lose this game. They get out to a 9-4 lead to start the game, looking like the Mavs are going to be all right in this one. The Mavs have beat the Warriors before, even with Jimmy Butler. They beat them without PJ Washington, without Dante Exum last time. Those guys return and they start for the Mavericks. But then the Warriors just rattle off a 16-0 run, and the Mavericks only score 18 points in the first quarter, a season low for them. Absolutely brutal, and the Warriors basically never looked back. The Mavericks fought back a couple times in this game, but only cut it to like 13 a few times in the second quarter. An absolutely brutal one. Mavericks fans have been asking to play Lively and Gafford together at some points, and they've never gotten that. But they did get Kyler Kelly and Moses Brown together, so I guess they got something.
And on the gridiron, Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders will not work out at the NFL Combine, opting to instead focus on his interviews. The projected top 10 pick is expected to throw on campus next month during the Buffs Pro Day. Everyone will go watch. You guys are never going to believe this, but we're going to talk about the LA Lakers because on Saturday night...
Finally, somebody acknowledges this little podunk team in the little city called Los Angeles.
Andy Kamenetsky from Locked On Lakers joins me now. A 123-100 drubbing of Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets on Saturday night. And for the first time, we really got to see the LeBron James and Luka Doncic partnership. Luka with 32, 10, and 7 casual. And LeBron added 25 of his own. Andy, I think the consensus was this makes the Lakers better when they made the trade. It puts them into contention in the Western Conference. But if you want to point to proof of concept for why they can potentially win the West, it's Saturday night, isn't it?
It's not lost on me that this was the night that Luka finally looked like Luka Doncic since joining the Lakers against the Denver Nuggets, the team that has been the Lakers' thorn in their side for the last couple of seasons. And the amount of losses that the Lakers have had against Denver, both in the regular season and particularly in the playoffs, I think has overshadowed the fact that most of these losses were really close. And really in the two series, 23 and 24, that the Lakers lost to Denver, in, I believe it's 9 games, they lost by a combined 50 points, something like that. I mean, they've been incredibly close, but it's been such a task that they can't overcome again and again and again. The idea that you bring in a player like Luka Doncic, who is as good as he is, a guy that can like shape an entire conference based on where he is, or shape an entire game when he's on the court, that he doesn't have this history against Denver. Like the history that LeBron, Austin Reeves, Rui, like the guys who are carryovers from that series, Luka's like, it's got nothing to do with me, man. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And I think that is really something that they need, both moving forward, but in terms of believing in themselves and the idea of getting over a hump, but in particular, if they end up in a playoff series against Denver, especially as two, they're going to be going against Denver or against really any team, often small. Jackson Hayes, the only center that you know will play.
Yeah, that is also just like Luka Doncic's general demeanor is, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like he always looks like he's got a look on his face going like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. That's sort of how he is. And that's why, you know, that demeanor is why he's so good on the basketball court. One thing we've also seen, Andy, since the Luka Doncic trade is it has allowed LeBron to amp up other parts of his game that maybe he was not able to unlock before. And I think defensively is the place where people have really started to notice a difference in that level, because when you have Luka, he can run your offense. You're not counting on LeBron to do literally everything. And so he can play much better defense. Is that what your eyes are seeing right now?
Yes, although to be fair to LeBron, this began before the Luka trade. And it even began before AD was hurt pre-trade and they were trying to get by for as long as they thought they would have to without AD. LeBron has cranked up his defensive intensity, I'd say, for probably anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And JJ Redick recently alluded to a conversation that he and LeBron had after a loss against the Heat by 40-something points. I don't remember the exacts, but Lakers just got their asses kicked. And I am guessing that part of the discussion involved, look, man, I can't get these other guys to play defense if you don't. Like, putting aside the fact that LeBron on the court for 35 minutes a night, playing below average, sometimes even indifferent defense, there's a trickle-down effect from that. And even if you want to write it off as the byproduct of 40 years old, season 22, conserving yourself, yada, 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 you still have to account for it. And it often, I think, created a permission structure for some of the other guys to not dial in on that end. The flip side is when LeBron is dialed in, beyond how much Luka's presence or Austin Reeves' improvement or other factors, Dorian Finney-Smith has been a big piece of this as well. He has been everything the Lakers have hoped for in a 3-and-D role player who provides toughness, who provides energy. Jared Vanderbilt's return has played a big role in this. Gabe Vincent rediscovering his form from Miami has helped a lot. But LeBron dedicating himself defensively the way he has, it makes it so the other guys are, look, the old man is out there defending. Like, we have to do this. Like, we have to. Like, we have no excuses at this point if LeBron is going to dial in the way he has. And again, for the last 4 to 6 weeks, LeBron, I would say 75, 80% of the time he is on the court, he has been playing pretty hard defensively, and you see it. It makes a difference both for him individually, but team-wide as well.
You can stay up to date all year on the LA Lakers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Lakers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Raiders have no shot this season, or do they? The Locked On NFL Squad Show came to the conclusion last week that the Raiders have no shot to win this season. Locked On NFL host Tony Wiggins argues that while that may be true, they're already showing signs of life, unlike other league bottom feeders.
I agree. All three teams y'all mentioned have no shot to win this year. Yeah. But the Raiders are the one, in my opinion, that are already where you said Myles Garrett gives Cleveland a chance to be if they make a trade. And where that is they've already been diagnosed. They've already come out of ICU, right? They're back in their room, got a long road to recovery, but they got Dr. Pete Carroll, and he has already told them exactly what's wrong. They did hit on their draft pick with Brock Bowers, who I think is already a top 4 tight end in the league. They do have a good pass rusher who wants to be there. They do have a couple of young pieces on the offensive line. Yeah, they need to fix quarterback, but at least they've already been diagnosed. They've had their surgery. They're out of ICU, and their heart is beating again.
I don't know that Tom Brady is going to countenance a full-blown rebuild, a full-blown we stink rebuild. That does not seem to be in Tom Brady's DNA to me. Aaron Rodgers, who knows, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, there are going to be veteran options out there at quarterback. And that was one of the big things holding the Raiders back. As much as my Packer fan base would love for Max Crosby to be made available, to be traded, I don't see it. And there is some talent on this Raiders roster for as difficult as their division is. I don't know that they have the stomach to gut this thing or to roll with a rookie quarterback. I just don't see it. I think they're going to try and find a way to be good. Whether that works, well, listen, they've been trying to be good for a long time and haven't been. So, and finally, Juan Soto wasted no time in his New York Mets debut. The 4-time All-Star crushed a home run in his first spring plate appearance for the Mets on Saturday. It's not like the Mets threw $765 million into the largest contract in sports history for nothing. This is a sign of things to come, right? Well, Mets fans certainly hope so. Welcome to Queens. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what can we expect from the NFL Combine? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.